Hey, Nicole Norwood here for some tea time and chat about the entertainment business. And today talking about episodic orders, how many episodes of television a show does over the course of the season, and how that has evolved for better and worse, and where it's headed. So we can start with the traditional episode order, which is, back in the day, your favorite shows would do 22 episodes of television every year, maybe 13 if it was a mid-season show. And if it was a huge success, maybe they do a couple extra and you get 24 episodes of your favorite show. And it really created a bond with the audience. You would be inviting these characters into your home. You would be looking forward to seeing them every week. You would be really having the time to learn about them, to sort of peel back the layers of who these people were and why they did what they did, and how they evolved over time, which made for a really compelling experience and really allowed you to connect with them in a deeper way. On the practical side, I think it also gave writers the opportunity to really learn the business. When you're writing 22 episodes a year, you really have to learn how to break story, how to create an arc over the course of a season, how to really plot emotional arcs for your characters, how to learn to be efficient and really know how to sort of churn out those episodes, work in a room with your coworkers, be able to put stories up on the board, throw things out, fix things along the way. It was a really great training ground. And when you're doing 22 episodes, you have more of an opportunity, especially as a younger writer, to maybe get the chance to go be on set, to learn how to interact with the director, to see how the set functions, to get to know the actors, to learn how to have a creative discussion with them, to sit in tone meetings. It really offers you the opportunity to have a fuller experience of the television production process. In the span of a year, you are doing probably more episodes than, someone who might be doing a short order show does in 3 years. And that is an incredibly valuable experience. And it's a little scary to think that there is probably this new generation of writers coming up who won't have learned that, who won't have the opportunity to learn that. I think people are so focused on these short order shows and being in the streaming world where you don't see 22 episodes of things that I worry it's going to be a skill that gets lost. And I think it's a really important skill to have. That is not to say shorter order episode shows are bad, but I think when they began, a lot of it came from writers feeling burnt out about the pressure of having to generate that amount of story over the course of the season. And make no mistake, it is incredibly difficult. And I think often there was a feeling that some stories don't have that many episodes, or you don't need that many episodes to tell them. Some stories have a more finite arc to them, which makes sense. So as cable blew up, as streaming started, I think one way to attract writers was to say, hey, you know what? You don't have to crank out 22 episodes. You have a great idea. You can do 8, and that's fine. And that was really, really appealing to a lot of people. It's not a bad thing, but it did shift the business a lot in that direction. And then as streaming really grew, and to compete with network, streamers were doing a direct-to-series model. So they weren't having writers write a pilot, shoot the pilot, and then making a decision about whether or not to make the series based on that pilot. They were hearing the idea and saying, you know what, it's great. Go write them all and shoot them. And so obviously, what writer doesn't want to hear that? It's not make a pilot and we'll think about it. It's just go make your series. So again, hugely appealing to writers, obviously. And, in that model, you don't necessarily have time to crank out 22 episodes of television. It's a lot easier to write and shoot 8. And also now you're looking at streamers that have a global audience. So your post-production process is really different. You are taking a lot longer because you have to do subtitling and dubbing, and that all takes time. It's a really intensive process. So it makes sense why you would do less episodes and you would do them over a longer period of time. Now, the downer of that, of course, is that it takes a really long time between seasons, and the audience has to wait an awful long time for new material. And in this day and age, with so many choices, so much television, there's no guarantee that your audience is going to wait around to see the second season if it comes 2-3 years later. The audience really, if they're engaged and they love these characters, they want to see more. And sometimes it's disappointing when you find a show you really love and 6 episodes later, it's over. Especially if it's a show that's meant to return and continue. That said, there are obviously the versions of series that are meant to be limited, that are meant to only be 1 season. And it's really more of kind of like an extended feature, right? And you can really put a lot of oomph behind promoting that limited series. You really just want people to tune in for that one singular experience, and you're done, you move on and on to the next. Another plus of the short order shows is that you can attract bigger talent because you're not asking these big names to commit to 22 episodes of television. You're saying, come in, just do 6, just do 8. And it allows them to go do other things, to go do features. So you have the opportunity to attract maybe a big name that might inherently bring you a lot of press. So that's a huge plus. I think conversely, what it takes away from the audience is that element of being able to discover new talent. I think one of the pluses of these longer order shows is that you're going to cast people who are less familiar to the audience, people who are willing to do 22 episodes of television, who don't necessarily have, a feature career or 100 other things on their plate at the moment. They're really just coming up and making their bones in the television business. And you really can, as an audience member, feel like you are part of their journey, feel like you are discovering this new face. And there's something really fun about that. There's something about seeing someone in a show and wondering like, ooh, who's that? I've never seen them before. They're really terrific. And similarly with, writers and directors, like it's fun to watch television and feel like you are, an important part of that show's success, because maybe it wasn't the most hyped show, but you found it and you loved it and you talked to your friends about it and you saw an episode and you thought, wow, that was an incredibly well-written episode. Who wrote that? And then you talk about that, and being able to be in on the discovery, again, it creates more connection between that show and the audience. And I think that is something that gets lost a little bit in these big behemoth shows that can be amazing in their own right. And visually, they're spectacular. They tell really interesting stories, but when you think about television, at least when I think about television, I really think about connection. I really think about um, making these people sort of part of my larger experience. And it's really interesting because oftentimes when you go into a meeting, one of the first questions people ask you is, what are you loving these days? What do you love to watch? And I think about that a lot because people ask the question and I really have to stop. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know what I love. And there are a ton of shows that I like tremendously that I think are so well produced, they're so well done. But in terms of what I love, I don't know because I don't feel the same connection to shows that I did in shows I watched growing up. And I think that really is because you don't spend as much time with them. You don't spend time connecting with them, getting to know those characters, seeing all of their strengths and frailties, and again, inviting them into your home and talking about them and discovering them in a way that you can't do in only 6 or 8 episodes. It really is a different experience. And I think those kind of connections are what generates sort of the love vibe of shows, right? It's time. It's like any relationship, the more time you spend and the more you get to know someone, the more you potentially love them. And so I think we really have to think about, as sellers and buyers, is there a way to do more of those kinds of shows? Is there a way to really put some more emphasis on shows that can run 22 episodes? So not only are we giving the audience what they want, because by the way, I don't know any audience person who loves television who has said, you know what, that's too many episodes. Give me less of that show. Like, I love it, but like, I really don't need to see more. That is something the industry did, right? That's not the audience. The audience didn't demand less episodes. The industry chose to do that. So I think we really have to listen to the audience and think about what they're interested in. I think it's why like a lot of kids these days and teens go back and watch shows from years ago because they have the opportunity to connect and they have many, many episodes that they can watch and they're not afraid that that show's going to go away after 6 or 8 episodes or that it's going to be 2 years before they can see the next one. And I think you see that a little bit with some of the shows on Netflix. I think when they brought Lucifer over to Netflix, that show did really well because people could know that there were many episodes for them to watch. They knew there were new episodes coming. And similarly with Suits, like you could, if you like that show, you knew you could really engage with it. You could really get to know those characters because there were so many episodes that you could watch. And you don't get that in the same way in some of these short order shows. So I think it's something that we really need to think about. Are there ways that we can produce more episodes faster and really give the audience more of what they want and bring it back to them more quickly? We did it for years and years and years in the television business. And yes, it's more complicated when you're doing something globally, but I do think there is a way to ensure that we don't lose that legacy of storytelling, that we continue to train writers in how to break and create story in that way, and continue to, frankly, mentor and nurture the next generation of writers by giving them the experience and the opportunity to learn how to not only write shows in that manner, but also produce them. Really important. And I think what has made our business great in the past and what will continue to make it great moving forward. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.